And good day, everyone. Richard Cowperthwait for Northwest Access TV. Thanks for joining us for another show as we get ever closer to Vermont Town Meeting Day coming up on March 5th. Not far away at all. Happy to have alongside David Winchester, candidate for Swanton Village President. David, good to see you. Thanks for jumping on.
Good to see you, Richard. Thank you for having me.
And let me note at the outset, David's in a contested race with Neil Spear, the longtime Swanton Village President, and this is for a one-year term. Neil Spear running for re-election. As I think folks who watch us may know, I'm trying to interview candidates. I try to interview candidates in contested races and get them to sit down together. Usually that happens, but this is one of those cases where it didn't happen. And again, Neil Spear, and I've interviewed Neil yesterday. I should know we're taping this show on Wednesday, Feb 21. Got the right date there. So in case anything dramatic happens in Swanton between now and then, and we're not asking candidates about that. Anyway, Neil Spear declined to have a joint interview with David, so figured a separate interview was better than nothing. So here we are.
Okay.
David, give us some background. Tell us about yourself.
I spent most of my life in Swanton. I grew up there and went to school.
And MVU grad?
MVU grad. Yep, in the late 80s.
Yeah. And again, work background, give us a little more info on yourself.
Okay. I'm a design and build contractor, and my major study was architectural engineering. So custom home designer and builder, basically.
Interesting. Keep plenty of work out there? You keep pretty busy with that?
Yeah. We kind of thought when COVID hit, it was going to kind of do the opposite of what happened, but nobody really realized that the entire world was going to start to look at Vermont as a place to be.
Interesting. So did you pick up more business at that point?
More than
you could deal with?
More than you could deal with. The phone would not stop ringing, and we were just, we've got commitments for the next year or two, and we really can't take on much more. And who you could bring in to help you, because everybody was busy at that time.
Yeah.
And the COVID scenario was really, when that first hit, and one person on a job site at one time, we just didn't know how we were going to get through all that. But we really didn't see the boom.
Really? So that came as just a big surprise. You would have expected just the opposite?
Real surprise, yeah. Really? Yeah.
How big you've got employees? How big a company?
No, just a few people, and then you bring in subcontractors mostly. So it's just kind of more project management and design a lot of times, and a lot of hands-on site as well.
I saw, looking back through messengers for the last couple of months, I think I saw a front page picture to do some work at the Swanton Public Library a while back.
Yeah, every once in a while a fun project will come by, and I'll participate in that and support it. And, they spent years trying to do this enclosure to separate the children's library from the rest of the access. Really? And then finally it came in, and we just kept it going, and then we added on top of it, and we put together an artistic part of it as well with Nicole Gadwa and a few other people, and I sponsored that and commissioned that part of it myself.
Interesting.
Donated it to town.
Love library, Swanton Public Library, one of our very good libraries around here.
Yeah, just a really enthusiastic staff and just a good vibe of people that have been there for quite a little while.
Right.
Yeah.
I should also note, again, David in a contested race for village president with the incumbent Neil Spear, also incredible. I literally couldn't remember the last contest in Swanton Village. We have not one but two. And again, I've interviewed the two candidates running for Chris Leach's seat on the Village Board of Trustees. I thought it was a nice gesture for the Village Annual Report to dedicate kind of the report to Chris Leach, 28 years, almost 3 decades on the board.
I know.
I knew he'd been on the board for a long time. I wasn't aware it was that long, but an incredible amount of public service here. I interviewed those folks yesterday. He said he had missed maybe 3 or 4 meetings or something in almost 3 decades. That's amazing. Anyway, so we have a contest also for Swanton Village trustee, Shane Mott and Susie Kelleher, who I've interviewed earlier, and that's for a 3-year term. And Susie mentioned she's kind of running as a team with you, David?
Yeah, Susie really kind of approached me. And said, well, there's only 2 seats available, so which one do you want?
Interesting.
So I really think that Susie's really well informed. and really has a lot of good background, especially with the law enforcement part of the
Yeah, of course, I know her parents, her dad, former Sheriff Dale Messier,
Dale,
of course.
yeah.
Interesting. So how did you jump into this race? How'd you make a decision to run for president of Swanton Village, which is a pretty big business here? Nothing I have to tell you.
Right. Yeah.
It's got a lot of stuff going on.
There is a lot going on. I think that, the biggest thing is, for the last couple of years, it's just what really seems to get people bothered is the buying and selling of real estate without going to public votes necessarily, and the confliction around how they're able to do that, and then the repercussions that come about doing it. So, and I think that just stirred up so much chaos, especially with the new project for the proposed rescue facility. At 20 million at
Public safety facility.
Yeah.
We'll certainly be talking about that at some length.
Yeah. So people are really concerned about the cost of that, and exactly the village taxpayers. The division between the village and the town, the non-one Swanton thing, and this project on this scale seems to be. If both sides aren't on board, it seems almost impossible to even think about it. And the town is already.
Of course, the vote itself is just for Swanton Village residents.
Yeah.
On the public safety facility.
But 77% of that
Sorry.
would be covered by the town.
Yeah.
And if the town decided they didn't want to support that, then 100% of that would fall on the village taxpayers.
Of course, an issue before the town is the police appropriation, which is up significantly. They'll get a little more police coverage, but that's
Yes.
certainly an issue getting some attention in Swanton town.
Yeah, well, nobody wants to spend more and more money on
Yeah.
law enforcement, right?
Yeah.
It's very expensive, as everything else is, and it comes with some complications because of what's town, what's the village, how much coverage each one gets,
Yeah.
And where their jurisdiction has to cut off 1 square mile versus the 40 or 50 square miles of the town, and how the best they can deal with the issues with those boundaries.
Yeah.
That makes another complication as well, right?
Law enforcement is a huge issue. I mean, are you concerned, you're mentioning folks concerned about taxes and rising prices and stuff. A lot of concern about crime, as there seemingly always is. Do you think Swanton Village PD is doing a decent job?
I do,
Yeah.
considering what they've got to work with, right? And the constraints that are around what they're able to do
Yeah.
and how they're able to do it. I think we have a great new chief, really do. Matt's fantastic, and a lot of the officers are great as well. But dealing with the complications of crime,
Yeah.
and it's not really small things that they're dealing with. They're dealing with some really, the drug issues and the dealing with that. And
The stat I got yesterday talking to the village folks, I think I remember this stat accurately. Bill Sheets, of course, a former Vermont State Police key person with VSP for many years. I
yes,
think he said going back some years, search warrants, they might, in the course of a year, maybe single digits, a handful of search warrants. I think he said these days it's about one a week or so,
Yeah.
just for one
Yeah.
stat.
yeah. I've had issues and with theft from our own property,
Really?
and exactly. And as far as one incident where I was almost killed by an individual that had been placed in this halfway house on First Street.
Almost killed.
Almost killed
Wow.
on the interstate. The individual had driven his pickup truck right in the back of one
Really?
of my assets
Huh.
on the way to Burlington, and totaled. They had no insurance.
Wow.
Was waiting to be tried for manslaughter
Wow.
for a year before. For accidentally somebody died in the vehicle while he was driving it, but had been placed in that, and how that person was able to have a really nice pickup truck, be able to drive around with no license, no insurance.
Did this person get a conviction out of this?
Well, he hit 2 people before he hit me, so it was a Franklin County issue, then it was a Chittenden County issue because my
Right.
accident happened in Chittenden County.
really?
But when my lawyer called me and explained to me where that individual lived,
Yeah.
it was an eye-opener.
Interesting.
Yeah. It was only about a block and a half from where I live.
Well, let's go right then. The big issue, of course, in Swanton Village, which we've touched on, is the proposed new public safety facility.
Yeah.
Originally had a price tag of over $19 million. Trustees cut that down to about 14.8 or up to 14.8 million. And I guess the 5 million would have been for what, renovating,
Yeah, it was like
remodeling
a
the village
two-phase.
complex.
Yeah,
So they basically took out one phase.
yes.
So again, I guess I know the answer.
That
but
is the biggest, yeah.
Right. And you do not support this project?
Do not support this project as proposed at the moment. No, I think there are other alternatives that we can look at that would, one, be more cost effective, and I think the voters should look at more options before signing up for this for 30 years.
Swanton, I mean, would you agree? I know Swanton Village PD a little bit. I mean, it's very cramped quarters.
Yes.
I mean, do they need to do something, or
Yeah.
you're not saying the status quo is acceptable?
I know they
Or are you
definitely
telling-
need more space,
Okay,
without a doubt.
okay.
And-
So what's your beef with and again, they've spent a lot of time working on this project, obviously. Is it just a price tag or more than that, or?
I think it's not only just the price tag, it's the purchase of the property, and it's been kind of a compounding issue with, like I said, not going to the voters first and asking them, or do you support this idea? Should we take it to the next level, go to the architects, figure out a design? It just kind of landed on the public in a way that I think that, it would be nice if they just kind of asked. And then not only one part of the public, but the other part of the public that pays for the majority of everything in a town.
Yeah.
The village only has $1.6 million worth of grand list, and the town has 5.6, I think. So of anything that we do that involves taxes, 77% of that mostly comes out of the town.
Right. Realizing you're not on the board now, I should ask you too, have you had some involvement in Swanton Village municipal affairs? Have you sat on any boards or anything, David? Have you been involved in?
Just like local arts councils and,
Okay.
yeah, some of the local political,
Okay.
or part of what was originally the SEP, the 5 entities.
The Swanton Enhancement
Yeah,
Project
Swanton
coming out of
Enhancement
the
Community Project,
Vermont Council on Rural Development visit, which sounded like a
Right.
very good visit a few years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're not on the board right now. You haven't been
Not on the
immersed,
village board, no.
not on the village
Yeah.
board. And any thoughts? So again, you oppose the project. What would you, if this goes down, what would you like to see and happen?
Well, there were some good ideas that people had out there. One
Yeah.
was maybe the old Ford dealership as a location for the police department. There's some location ideas that, make a lot of sense.
So maybe a different location.
Yeah, well, you would put some money into something downtown that could use some enhancement. The location seems to be really ideal as well. If there's a lot of worries about crime in the heart of Swanton and that part of the community,
Yeah.
that having the PD there, more centrally located, might.
Price tag, have you got, I suspect you don't, have you got any rough?
I don't think they've done anything on it, but I can't,
No.
an existing facility to overhaul would be a lot less than starting from scratch.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially at the prices right now that they're talking about. And that's another issue all across the state, as people want to have communities have ARPA money.
Yeah.
And
ARPA being American Rescue Plan Act money, yeah.
yeah, and so you have to spend that within a certain amount of time.
Yeah,
So everybody's trying to get, and the bigger the projects or the projects involved, there's only so many construction companies that can handle
yeah.
these projects before that time runs out.
I'm sure not a construction guy, anything but I often hear that renovating an existing building ends up being more costly than putting up a new building.
I would not say that to be
No,
true.
well, is that, so am I crazy? I mean, I've literally heard
Yeah.
that from, and
I
even
mean,
builders, am I crazy to?
Maybe 5-6 years ago.
Yeah,
But now, depending on what it is
Yeah.
and what you've got to go through and
Yeah.
all the different hurdles. So a large project, I think, is depending on what you're looking at to do,
Yeah.
you really have to compare the two together.
yeah,
There's a lot more soft costs involved with developing something right from scratch than necessarily having to renovate something that's existing. But still, it would be great to see some different options.
yeah,
And, one of the proposals so if we need some more space
yeah,
at the municipal complex, the one entity that could probably easily deal with it would be the electric company.
yeah,
And so several people have proposed, and myself as well, when I've met with Bill, it's like, why don't we just let the electric company build their own new facility because they can afford to pay for that on themselves without going to property taxes. If they moved out of the complex, that would probably free up 8,000 to 10,000 square feet. That's administration, that's all kind of storage. That would free up a lot more space even for the PD in the existing thing until they figure out what they want to do with the PD. And as far as like the fire department goes, I mean, the what do you want? The rescue facility, which is the ambulances on the right side, they're leaving. So you have that fourth bay opening up. So there's a lot of things that they could do there to overhaul and make improvements versus just spending all that money on just building an all new facility. Just to say, when you start looking at things per square foot and start talking about $700 a square foot for a new facility, you start to look at what exists as being quite valuable. And how much would it cost to add the features that they think they need versus building all new?
There are other articles on the warning as there always are appropriations that the village trustees are seeking for the general fund, highway department, fire department, and police department. Are you okay with them, or?
Yeah,
So
it's
you
really
support all
just
those?
we should look at different options for the,
Because I'm hearing there's a group, and maybe there's a group like this everywhere. I'm hearing there's a group in Swanton, some people being told, hey, vote no on everything. Send the village folks a real message, vote no on everything. You're not part of that view?
No, but I think...
Are you aware that there is such a group out there?
I think that's happening more on the town side.
More on the town side?
Yeah.
Have you not heard that on the village side at all?
Maybe slightly.
But more in the town
More in the
side.
town. Because, like I said, if the village passed the complex and then say in 2025 the town said, nope, we're not going to pay for 77% of that. We're going to look at different options. And there are definitely different options they could probably look at that could be a lot less. And if they left after we hook up, because the village technically owns this and because we're not a one Swanton entity where everybody's on board equally when it comes to these things, that is the real risk for the village taxpayers.
When you say one, I've heard that term. Tell me, what exactly, when you say one Swanton, are we talking a merger here, or what do you mean by one Swanton?
It's the same thing. I've heard that for a long time. Right? What is one Swanton? What is one Swanton? And then finally somebody gave me a copy of the
Is that term, I'm not sure I had heard that term much in the past. Has that term been out there for a while?
I think it has. I've heard it bounce around for over a decade or more.
But not necessarily, or not coming from people who are talking merger? I mean, a separate issue, or not clear, or? I guess I should ask you for start.
I read the report. I think
Interesting.
it's very interesting, the fact that both sides unanimously voted to do the study and that they never got to vote on it themselves at town meeting day after it was presented to both boards as being the best option for the future. But I was in my early 30s when that came around and really didn't pay too much attention to political.
Speaking of merger, what about a merger? Is that something that should be looked at? Do you think that might make sense for the village and town?
I think there's a lot of logic to it.
I guess financially, the quick answer is that it probably would sell a lot easier in the village than the town, or do you not see it that way?
I don't necessarily see it that way. I hear more people from the town. People are divided, I think, mostly on the silly things like sidewalks, but the sidewalks are in the town and the village. But the big thing, I think, is the PD budget. And I think part of the issues that are involved with that is because so much of that is now on the village side versus the town side. But I don't think it has to be equal on both. I mean, you just can't patrol the entire township equally. But I think if they had the ability to focus on densely populated areas and where the issues were that they thought needed to be addressed without the constrictions of the borders, that a lot more efficiency could be had for the PD and across the board for both town and village. You hear about the fact that the state police are down in numbers, the difference between contract police and versus employees.
Yeah, I think troopers are down, again, Bill Sheets just mentioned this, down about 50 troopers or so statewide or so. Really significant.
You heard some people from the town say, well, let's get an estimate from the sheriff's department of what it would cost to contract with the sheriff's department, and they wouldn't want to contract with the village PD anymore.
I get, of course, just they're losing St. Albans City coverage, which I'm sure you know, July 1st when City PD takes over again in St. Albans Town, and Highgate's contracting with the sheriff's department.
I mean, that's a good example of two entities that don't have a history of getting along, have decided that fighting crime is better that they work together than to work apart.
Not a lot of options out there.
Yeah.
It was interesting. One of the candidates I interviewed running for Swanton Town Select Board thought the appropriation being sought on town meeting for police protection for Swanton Town was too high, and candidate said he would oppose that. I said, if that goes down, then what? And the candidate said, oh, well, state police would cover us. And I said, boy, kind of good luck with that. I'm not sure. I hope you're not thinking you're going to get a lot of coverage from state police, but
I think there are some areas way out in the township that might see the state police more than they might see the village PD, and just because of the location to the barracks, and because Swanton is kind of these two wings off the center of where the village is, and the water and the bridge and getting across from A to B, it really is kind of two halves. But I think working together, I think that if you're going to really fight crime that's in your densely populated areas, having a police department is probably the best solution for it, working in conjunction with the state police.
Thoughts on downtown health of Swanton Village downtown these days? What do you think?
Well, it's looking better than it has in a long time. I think that's, the beautification committees and different projects that people have put together, and I think a lot of people have initiative and ideas.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm thinking you had some issues with Ace Hardware with Gordon Winters.
Right.
I think maybe some real history there. I think most people, I would think, and I'm not a Swanton guy, saw that as a big boost for the downtown. You saw it otherwise, or were you just not happy with what happened, or what?
Well, I think that was another one of those things where people didn't have to get a chance to say, a vote.
But what should people, what say should they have had? Can a business person kind of do what they want or not?
Well, sure. But the difference is
reason.
you're talking about community-owned assets transferring over to private entities.
Okay.
And really that should be, and there are regulations for and how you should do it. And a small group of people telling everybody else what they should and shouldn't do, or what is best for them, I think that just rub people the wrong way. And as far as like the community center goes, and how having to replace the community center at 10,000 square feet, estimated almost $5 million, and you had 28,000 square feet. The socioeconomic benefits of having that community center downtown, I think, would have benefited a lot of the public, especially the merchants in the area and the community, bringing people back into the central part of downtown. There isn't really a lot public going on anymore. Way back in the day when you had the high school and you had the Catholic Church, and they went together on the memorial, and then of course, the Veterans Memorial issue altogether is that my grandfather was a World War II veteran of the Navy.
My father was a WW2 vet,
And growing up, I heard this because it was closed by when I was growing up. And it was only open for like 20 some odd years before they built the high school, and it kind of went into limbo because of that. And now they're talking about that they want a community center and enhance the community center and build upon it. And we had 10,000 square feet already in operation as a community center, and to what would have needed to bring it back wouldn't have been anywhere near what they're spending now. So does it look nice what they've done downtown? Sure. But at the same time, from taxpayers, has it really balanced off now that we're having to spend so much more money now at this point in time, now that everything has ballooned and costs so much more? So it's tough to say. But people didn't really get much of a chance to say about that.
Speaking of downtown, truck traffic comes right to mind. Have you got any magical solutions about the truck traffic issue? And that would probably get you a few votes if you did, David.
Well, they had approached us about, there's a downtown scoping study going on. And, a lot of people dream about this bypass.
Boy, that's funny. I've been around here for a long time. Going back maybe a few decades, I would hear about, we're hoping to do a bypass. I don't think I've heard any serious talk about a bypass in years. Am I missing something here?
No. I think environmentally, getting it across the river again and doing whatever and through the wetlands, good luck with that. I think that the flow through 78 and through the village of Swanton, and of course it makes that hard left turn or right turn, depending on how you look at it, the library and Grand. That used to be the back road out of town before they built the interstate. So, and the flow of traffic and the right of way has always been Route 7. And they haven't changed that, despite the fact that really it goes from 78 7 to 78 again. And the trucks have just gotten bigger over the decades, right? And the commerce traffic is the only way around the lake.
Yeah.
So
I guess the one hope is when they finish north of the border, kind of the last
There'd be some-
segment of the interstate like highway coming right in close to Highgate Springs. I guess the hope is anyway that might take some of that traffic off, but
I think that is the hope. But
that's a hope.
I think the best thing to do is just design around it.
Yeah.
If they can. And they had talked about a traffic circle. I don't think that's necessarily the best solution, but a quarter circle maybe at Grand and First Street would make a lot of sense if they could carve a little bit out of the parking area there by the park and have enough room so the trucks could get by one another without having to stop.
Yeah.
It's when the trucks stop and they have to go one by each other, one by at a time, especially during the peak traffic flow areas in the morning and the afternoon is when it all starts to back up.
Yeah. I guess there's an issue with the route. I think on earlier shows I said, gee, imagine me making a mistake. It happens. I think I've called the highway bridge over the river the Vermont Route 36 highway bridge. I guess how about Vermont Route 78? I guess, right?
78,
my apologies for that earlier show mistake, but I guess there's some work to do there. And I guess Waterline Village is looking to put under the river there, but there's some issues there.
Threefold.
Yeah.
They're going to drill underneath the river to replace the main water line that's attached to the side of the bridge.
Yeah.
And then supposedly the bridge needs to be temporarily overhauled with expansion joints, which was supposed to have been done a year or two ago.
Seems like transportation, highway, bridge stuff just gets routinely. Look about Route 78 in West Swanton. How long have I been hearing about some work being done
And they never
out
fixed
there?
it. They just paved over it.
Right.
But they needed to really do something at that point,
Right.
and it was really bad.
Right. Down to 2 minutes. Time flies here. Any other issue you want to, like a minute on or something that we haven't touched on? And I'll give you a closing statement, but last minute and a half is yours, basically.
Okay. I think the biggest issue is, if you vote no for the police rescue facility, it isn't because you don't support the police and the rescue department. One is very expensive. The risk is enormous. It doesn't hurt to take a little bit more time and look at some different options, especially if you sign up for it. It's going to be 30 years. And we should have some commitment from the town that they're going to stay on board if this does get passed in some manner, right? Especially considering how imbalanced the two sides are about where the money comes from to pay for things. It would be great if a one Swanton scenario could work out, that everybody agrees that crime is an issue. And it seems like it would work best that if we all worked together on solving it. Just versus one side saying yay, one side saying no. What exactly that is to be determined, right? But I think working together is always going to be a better solution than fighting against one another.
Okay, I think we'll leave it right there. I got to think there's going to be a pretty decent turnout in Swanton Village. I would certainly guess the biggest turnout in a long time with 2 contested races and the public safety facility.
I think the public safety would be the biggest, might bring in people.
I think the contest will certainly kick things up too.
Taxes really seem to stir people.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks to David Winchester, a candidate for Swanton Village President, challenging the incumbent Neil Spear. Another contest in the village. Shane Mott and Susie Kelleher looking to succeed Chris Leach on the Swanton Village Board of Trustees for a 3-year term. A lot of stuff going on in Swanton. Thanks to my producer, Josh Pryor, doing all the hard work back there. I'm Richard Cowperthwait. We appreciate you watching us here on Northwest Access TV. We'll see you next time.